Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another Getting to Know You with an AFL draftee. And we've got probably the most hyped one that you've asked for. We've got Murray Bushrangers and Vic Country, superstar hard runner. He's got the biggest engine you've ever seen, time trial champion. Much talked about. We've got Ollie Hollands. How you doing, my friend?
Hey, Pommy, how are you? Thanks for having me on. Doing really well. It's a very exciting time of the year, and can't wait for Monday.
Hey, well, I mean, we've got you on your last Friday as a free man. How are the nerves going into the draft?
Yeah, the nerves they're obviously there a bit, but I'm kind of trying to turn it more into excitement. Obviously, getting so close to living your dream, or of course my dream. So, it's only just around the corner now, and I think I've been fortunate enough to be in a position where I think I will be getting drafted, which is kind of nice to have that comfort. But obviously, it's a very exciting time of the year.
And you've been very talked about. Obviously, overnight, we've had some club personnel say that they're looking for hard outside runners and almost said you, but not you, but they've described you. So obviously, how does that feel to obviously just going about your day and suddenly your name is there on the radio? It's everywhere at the minute. You are probably outside of the top three, the most talked about draftee in the radio.
Yeah, it's obviously quite strange. Obviously I haven't had much of it growing up, but I think as you start to get closer to being in a professional environment in AFL, like this is all a part of it. Like it's a part of dealing with that. And obviously at times throughout your career, there might be a bit of hype or it could even be the opposite. It could even be a little bit of hate. But yeah, it's obviously, it's a strange feeling starting to hear your name thrown out there a bit. I think, particularly there's been a bit of stuff on social media with from the AFL posting and even just a few small channels, putting my name out there a bit. But it's definitely a strange feeling. But no, I guess it's all a part of professional sport, isn't it?
It is indeed, mate. And you're coping with it well. You're coping it with it well. You're taking it in your stride. Well, we obviously in Victoria, we had something that not many of the other states dealt with. We had COVID, and a lot of the players talk about 16 and 17 years old was probably when they made their most developments in their game. How did you cope with that when literally Victoria had no football? How did you manage to maintain the level and get through that?
Yeah, obviously it was a really challenging time and no one knew what was going to happen. And obviously there wasn't much sport getting played at all. So I think my mindset throughout COVID and throughout that particular time was just kind of control what I can control. And at that time, I guess it wasn't where there was still a lot of uncertainty of what sport was going to look like, whether we were going to be back playing or not, or even what happened in the under-17s year, how we only got, I think we played 2 games against Victoria Metro. So that was kind of my mindset, just control what I could control. And that was me just doing my training and which was pretty much, I did a lot of it, I guess, on my own. I still had Elijah with me in that 2020 year, but he was sidelined a bit, having to do his rehab as he did his ACL. So I guess we sort of pushed each other through that year. I guess we probably did quite a few gym sessions with each other, trying to push each other along. And I guess I sort of had to go out and keep working on my craft and my running and stuff as well.
Man, that's cool. And obviously having a brother that is in the AFL, how has that been? How has Elijah helped you? Has he inspired you? Is it a target to be better than him? How is that in your mind?
Yeah, it's great. Like I've had obviously a bit of footy blood in my family, so it's kind of ran through the family a bit, with my great grandfather playing and my dad playing a few games for Richmond there, and yeah, of course Elijah's there now. So, but no, he's a great resource. Obviously, he's able to. We always have conversations about what he's doing behind the scenes of the club. What is he doing at the club? What's his training look like? yeah, all that sort of stuff, which is like a great insight to have. There's definitely that sort of competitiveness to be better than him. I guess we tend to sort of like have chats about who was going to go high in the draft, but obviously that's sort of just a little family thing that we sort of have that little competitiveness with each other. But yeah, obviously, yeah, it's been great to get my sort of information from him, and yeah, it's just been an overall great resource to have.
Mate, I'd imagine, having brothers myself, and you're being the little brother, I'd imagine that when you guys do finally meet on the footy field in AFL, you've got to lay that hard tackle. You're probably going to have to get out of position to get him, though, aren't you?
Absolutely. I think something I've been looking at as I'm starting to sort of not be in the picture frame of being at the same club as Elijah, I've sort of looked into what the Angus Brayshaw or the Brayshaw brothers have been doing, and even the Selwood brothers over the years, how they've sort of gone at each other. And I think potentially if I can get in there and start playing, I think that I might sort of have to target him a bit if I get that chance to play against him.
Hey, we can't wait to see that, mate. We can't wait to see it. I mean, obviously, if we get our way and you come to us, Gold Coast have a nasty habit of being a horrible game. So for us, so we'd love to see you chase Elijah down and dig him into the turf for us.
Yeah,
now,
absolutely.
How would you rate your draft year? How would you rate it this year? Is it been a good one? Is there anything that you wish you'd done more of?
Yeah, I think it's been a really exciting year for me. I think I came into the year probably wanting to just play consistent footy, and I think that's what most people want to do in their draft year, and particularly just in footy in general. Just want to have an overall consistent year. But my year started a bit slow, so my first game of the year, I injured my ankle, so I was out for 3 games, I think it was. So missed a little bit of time there, but I think looking back on it, I think it was a good thing for me to learn and understand. I haven't sort of had to deal with much of an injury before, and obviously having that bit of a slow start kind of set me back a little bit, which is okay, because I think that's what you got to deal with. And when you're playing sport, you got to be resilient and get through those tough patches. But yeah, so I was able to play a mix of different roles throughout the year. Over the last few years, I've probably just spent more time just playing in the midfield. A little bit of outside, probably more so inside. But yeah, so I was rapt to be able to play a few different roles this year. So spent a bit of time on a wing, and I played a couple games down back in the back, and I spent a fair bit of time playing up forward as well. So I felt like the way I'd embraced those new roles, I was really happy with. I think I felt like I just played really consistent footy throughout the year, and I think Dad tends to say that he hasn't seen me play a bad game for a while. So it's nice to sort of have that feedback. But yeah, overall, really happy with how the champs went with Vic country. It would have been nice to have won a premiership throughout the year. Obviously, didn't quite get that opportunity, but yeah, I think overall, really happy with how the year went.
It's been a superb year, and I agree with your dad. You are incredibly consistent, and I love the fact you touched on you've played different roles, because the media kind of bill you as just a pure wingman, but there's a lot more to your bow. And I do want to briefly talk about the draft combine as well. It's not talked about enough that you actually beat Sam Walsh's 2K time, which I remember doing Sam Walsh and doing the draft previews and everyone raving about this kid. Your engine can pretty much play anywhere on the park, can't it? Bar ruck, but you never know. You might. You look like the kid that would jump in the ruck if needed. But how do you think that sets you up for the AFL? The fact that you have that elite running, and that is probably, you would say, the non-negotiable in the AFL nowadays. It's all about running, no matter where you play.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've grown up as a kid knowing that if you want to play AFL footy, you've got to be a good runner. So, yeah, it's definitely a real asset to have. I think there are people in the system, obviously, that it isn't their biggest strength, but I think they tend to be the smartest footballers. They're the ones that necessarily don't need to cover them the most amount of ground. They're probably those type of players are probably the more smarter runners. So, but yeah, so I think with me and obviously, yeah, having that sort of good endurance, I think it does probably, allow me to play a few different roles. Yeah, as you touched on before, I think, I did spend a bit of time throughout the year playing a mix of different roles, and I think as I can play a mix of different roles, I think it gives me a bit of more of an opportunity to go in there and sort of have an impact early. I think coming into pre-season with whatever club I hopefully can get to, I think that's going to be one of my main strengths is my running. So I think if I can continue to have an impact there with the training drills we're doing and just consistently show that high work rate and high intensity, I think will hold me in good stead.
I think it will. When I think for the Carlton fans watching out there, I feel sorry for Ed Kerner because he's won our time trial for like the last 30 years, and now he's going to have to face Sam Walsh and potentially yourself. I reckon that time trial at pre-season is probably worth going to watch with you three, should you come to Carlton. But obviously, how would you describe your game style? Like a lot of people have, like I say, the media are calling you a wing, and I've watched a lot of your football. I think that's unfair. I think you're more of an inside-out player who potentially... I get Lockie Whitfield from you. The fact that you can play pretty much anywhere with that engine. How would you describe Ollie Holland's game?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's probably something that gets brought up a bit. But no, I think the type of player I think I am is probably, that sort of inside-outside midfielder. I think that's probably where I do play my best footy is probably on the inside. And I think with that, it kind of just allows me to use my main strengths, which is my high work rate, being able to cover the ground, and whether that be running back in defence and then running forward and trying to get involved in transitions. So that two-way running, I think, is probably one of my big strengths as well. I think as well, my work below my feet. So I feel like I'm really clean below my feet. So I think that's really another one of my big strengths, just being able to be clean and sort of just have that one touch. And then I'd probably say my defensive pressure as well, the stuff I'm doing when I don't have the ball in hand, like the pressure action I'm bringing to try and turn over the footy and get it back going my team's way. So I think they probably, I think that's probably me as a player. I think you're right in terms of the sense that there has sort of been a bit of talk of me being a winger. I do feel as though as I come into sort of the start of my career, it probably will look like more of an outside role. And that's me just understanding where I'm at as an 18-year-old kid, knowing that obviously I'm a bit of a lighter frame at this point in time, but once I put a bit of size on, I think eventually down the track that can see me playing in of a more an inside mid role. So, but yeah, I think that's the good thing about me as well, that I am quite versatile. I do feel. I think I've shown that this year. Sorry, just being able to play mixed roles. So, I think that's me as a player. So yeah.
No, mate, I think it's great to hear because I do see a lot of the gurus say, oh, he's a pure winger. And I'm thinking, he's got some other strings to his bow as well. Do you know what I mean? It's not just that. You are probably, like you say, 2024, we're probably seeing that 30% on-ball time coming in as well. And I'd love to see you at high half forward. I think that there's goals in you. I know we haven't seen a lot of goals at junior level that's been talked about. But one thing I have noticed about you is you're a big game player. You did seem to, when you played for country particularly, that was the level went up. Now, to Faye's question, this one, is there a difference between playing for Bushrangers in terms of skill level and playing for country? And also, do you find yourself get a little bit more pumped up to play national championships because you're against the best of the best?
Yeah, I think they're two very good questions. I think the first part of that question is that there definitely is probably that difference in skill level compared with the Bushies, or more so NAB League compared to the champs. I think, I think you're playing against some of the best players in that league. And I think obviously when you're coming up against some good players in different states, which is something new that we got the opportunity to do this year, was play against the Allies, SA and WA. So it's good to play against the boys from a few different states, and yeah, it was good to come up against that. But I do definitely feel like, in terms of the speed and probably the ball movement as well, I feel like when you're going into national champs level, it's more so 2-3 kicks in terms of transition from one like from defense to the forward line, where NAB league, I think it's a little bit slower, and it's probably more about ball retention and and I think there's probably a little bit more courage that's probably played with it at the champs. I think there's a lot of guys willing to take it on, and probably willing to be a little bit more dangerous. But so I think that's the first part of the question. What was the next part? Was it big game player? Is that?
Yeah. You seem to have been better in the national champs and really stand out. Do you rise for the occasion? Is that like a motivation factor for you?
I think there's obviously that excitement to just be wearing the Vic Country jersey. I feel like, me personally, knowing that I've been given that opportunity to go in there and play for Vic Country, when there's so many boys that would rather, or that would like to be in that position as well. I know that it'd be selfish of me not to go out there and give them 110% best. So I think obviously there's that bit of a motivator, just wanting to go out there and represent the jersey in a good manner. But I feel like, obviously, being along some of the boys that, that are obviously highly touted. So playing alongside Jai Clark, Mitch Sipkowski, Aaron Cadman, a few of the Vic Country boys, it's very special to play with those guys who are obviously going to have really exciting AFL careers. And then obviously, as I touched base before in the first part of the question, getting that opportunity to play against other states and really represent your state, I feel like is probably a main motivator for me, and probably is that little chip on the shoulder for me, is just to go out there and represent that jersey in a good way. So yeah.
Mate, I love that. I love that. It's a great answer as well. I love to hear footballers talk about representing the jersey, because as a fan, that's so important to us. So taking that into the AFL, you're going to be very loved very quickly. Mm-hmm. Now, draft combine, you mentioned there you've played with some real good players. You've got Cadman there, and you've named a host of others. Jai Clark, who's highly talked about, like yourself as well, because of the Geelong interest. How is it when you're going into that combine and suddenly these guys who were probably your mates and probably teammates are suddenly rivals for airtime, really? How is that mindset, and what was that whole process, the interviews and the combine, like for you?
Yeah, it's such an exciting time, I guess. Yeah, as I touched base on before, with COVID over the last few years, there sort of hasn't been that opportunity for us to all come together, and especially in terms of the combine. So I think it was really special to have all states in one place again this year, as how it normally is. So yeah, you're right. There obviously is that little bit of rivalry, but I think I got to know quite a few of the guys from the other states pretty well. I was fortunate enough to be picked in the AFL Academy squad last season, where we played against Collingwood throughout the middle of the year. So that team had a variety of players from a whole different states, and I feel like it was a really good chance to catch up with those guys and get to see how their season went, how their body's going, and sort of just catch up again. I feel, but yeah, obviously, it was such an exciting time. The combine, there was, with all the interviews, I feel like they can become a bit daunting, I feel. But I guess it kind of just depends on the approach from the club. Like, a few of the clubs like to take more of a relaxed approach towards it all and sort of just make it a conversation with just some questions, like on how you feel your season went, where do you see yourself playing next year, some areas of improvement. Those are a few questions that tend to always get brought up. But yeah, it's more so the approach that the club makes. So a few clubs like to take that approach where it's a little bit more sort of just coming at you and just firing questions. When other clubs, like to take that more conservative approach. But I was fairly busy. I had I think I had 14 interviews with clubs, and I think I had 6 or 5 interviews with the media. So I was pretty busy. So it was definitely a mentally draining couple of days, but it was just really exciting just being able to be at the combine and have those interviews with clubs and the media, which is really exciting. But so I was really happy with it, how it all went, and then all the testing side of things was really good as well. So I felt like I couldn't have done any better than what I did, and it was probably a really good way to finish off the year.
Mate, it sounds awesome. It's one thing as a fan and covering the draft that makes me sad with the Americans, because the Americans televise all this so we can watch you guys test, and I think that's a trick the AFL misses. I think there's a lot of interest in that, but great insight, because obviously it's like a closely guarded secret. It's like Area 51 AFL draft combine testing. They just release the results and away we go. We go to the draft. But that being said, is there anyone that stood out for you that isn't getting the kudos from the AFL media that you think, God, he was really good, or a teammate who you think he's sensational?
Yeah. I think Jackson Binns is probably one. I think he still finished. I think he finished, third or tied or second. Depends how you make the approach with Jason and I. But yeah, Binsey was phenomenal. I think the way he tested was really good. Like his 20-meter stuff and his agility was really good. And then obviously what he did out on the track, I think he ran 6 minutes still. So yeah, absolutely flying there from Binsey. But yeah, I think he's been someone who's had a really exciting year. Being named in the All-Australian squad throughout the champs, I think was really well deserved by him. I think he's really put in the work over the last few years, and is a gun cricketer as well. So for him to make that decision in footy, I think is great for him, and for him to receive that recognition for his hard work, I think was really well deserved. So yeah, I think Binsey's definitely one that probably should get acknowledged a bit more for some of the stuff he's done, particularly the combine as well. So yeah, probably Jackson.
Mate, I love that answer, and he is a surprise because he had a fantastic last game, didn't he? And that was televised, and he dominated in his last national champs game. And usually, if you have a good last national champs game, that shoots you up the draft order. It's one of them weird things with the AFL. It's like the only game you need to be good at. But he's kind of just been forgotten about, hasn't he? And like you say, he's a very talented footballer.
Yeah, absolutely. I think even some of the games he was playing over the course of the 4 games we played, like his game against Allies was phenomenal. I think he had nearly 40 disposals and just consistently just worked up and down the ground. And I think, it really shows the type of footballer he is. The thing about him, he definitely wants the ball in his hand, and it's good to see. Like he wants to have an impact on the game, and whether it be kicking a goal or just having the footy in his hand in general, it's good to see. Like players wanting to have an impact with the footy. So, but yeah, for sure, I think I think he was overall really consistent throughout the champs, and particularly that last game as well was a really good finish for him.
Mate, I love that. I love the support as well of a team, mate. You got to love it. We love to see it. Now, is your preparation, how has that developed and evolved from in the juniors? You've obviously been high level all your juniors. Is there anything you've added, things you like to do? What's your game day prep look like?
Yeah, I think obviously the preparation in terms of coming into your matches. Obviously you learn so much more as you go up in the ranks a little bit through the bushies and through Vic country as well. And in terms of just preparation, like recovery and nutrition and what else, just like gym work as well, like all that side of things I've learned so much on. I think something that I really made the most of this year was my recovery and making sure that as soon as I'm finished my game of footy that weekend, I was straight into recovery. So I'd be ready for the next week. And I think it's probably something that can kind of be a little bit overlooked in terms of performance. I think like the approach kind of, that the approach to recovery can definitely be overlooked. I think it's more, I think, especially throughout junior footy, I think a lot of young footballers think that if you want to improve, it's all throughout just the work you're doing at your local training. And I think, of course, that's right, but it's also the stuff you're doing behind the scenes, which is that recovery, making sure that you're getting to understand your body and knowing where it's at. And I think that worked really well for me as I was getting towards the back half of the season. I felt like my body was in a really good place where I was able to just keep going. And I think the last sort of half of the season was probably the real turning point for my year. And I think, it was a lot of that, the stuff I was doing in terms of recovery and nutrition as well was super important for my football. But I think they're probably some of the big things I've learned as I've sort of gone from a junior footballer as coming into sort of the draft sort of future. I think there's some things that are super important. And I think game day preparation for me is there's not too much going on. I think just making sure that the night before you have a good meal and just get some good carbs in. I think I'm not a very big breakfast eater when it comes to game day. My stomach tends to shrink on me on game day. I think it's a little bit of nerves there, but because of that, I've got to make sure that I'm having good carbs the night before to supply that energy, so I'm ready to go. For game day. And then for me, I always like to get electrolytes in, so making sure that I'm not dehydrated at all, and I've got good water in my system, and I've got plenty of energy there. So I think that's really important for me, just making sure that I'm coming into the game with good amounts of energy, as I do tend to burn quite a bit of it off as with my running and work rate. I think I'm always finishing a game with a headache. So I think something that I really look into is the nutrition and side of things, making sure I've got the right amount of energy before a game of footy.
Mate, I love that. It's just, obviously, like you say, you burn so much energy. So, I mean, I'd imagine there's a lot of good carbs the night before, because you are one of them players that is tiring to watch. It's like Rafa Nadal plays tennis. You're just everywhere all the time.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's so important. I think, and especially because I'm not a big breakfast eater on game day, and I think it's fairly similar for most athletes and just footballers in general. So I think, definitely making sure that you're getting a good meal in the night before is super important.
Mate, POM diet is pure carbs back home. So you need a pommy nan or something. She'll feed you roast potatoes. Now, 5 minutes to go in the elimination final. We're 2 goals down. What are we seeing from the stands from Ollie? What are you doing? How are you going to get us over the line? What are you doing hard?
Well, let's set the scene a bit more. Whereabouts is the footy? Where's it on the ground?
Okay, well, they've just scored. So with 5 minutes, 2 goals down, balls bounced. What are we going to be seeing in that last 5 minutes from yourself?
I think there's got to be a little bit of composure there. I think if you're trying to make it all happen, within that instant moment, I think it can sort of bounce away from you and you can get a little bit carried away. So I think making sure that you're keeping a level head and staying composed and waiting for the right moment to happen. So I think, obviously wanting to, if the ball's in dispute, just putting your body on the line and just making sure that, you're either going to win it or you're going to half it. So, and I think probably it could be a little bit of Richmond style play, just try and keep the ball going forward and getting it closer to our goal to try and get it into your big key forwards, trying to, get it to big Harry Mackay or Charlie Kerner or one of those guys and kick a goal for you. But no, I think honestly, just staying composed and, keeping a level head, because I think you can get a little bit caught up in the moment. And if you try and let, sort of the nerves get to you, I think that's when the performance kind of hinders a little bit. So, I think just waiting for that right moment to come and, staying composed.
If you're running in 50, are we taking a shot at goal?
Depends if it's on. If the square's open and if there's no one to pass to, I think you've got to try and back yourself in to kick the goal.
It's my big bugbear in watch-alongs. I want to see people have a crack more. I think AFL footballers now are getting too nice and dishing it off. You've got to take the opportunity, be the hero sometimes.
Yeah, I think so. There's definitely that sort of your moment and your chance to sort of just put it through. So, yeah, I think, yeah, if an opportunity arises, I think, yeah, you're right. You've got to take it sometimes.
Yeah, mate. And on that note, if the guys at home and the girls at home are going to do some research on you, what game would you say to them? Go and watch this. This is my best work.
I think it would be either the Western Australia game that we played at, or Vic Country played at HBA, or probably the last game against Vic Metro. I think, yeah, I think that was probably one of my real good games as well. I think I really showed people that I can match it with some of the best, especially with Will Ashcroft and Cam McKenzie and Elijah Sardis in the midfield for Vic Metro. And I feel like I really showed that I can match it with those guys. So, yeah, I think that was probably another one of my, probably better games for the season. So, yeah, I think maybe I'd lead the supporters to go watch those games.
Mate, they're all available as well on AFL.com. Nice and easy to find. But I think that last game, like you say, Startus and Ashcroft, they have been raved about with Cam McKenzie. And you did, like you say, you halved it at worst. Most of them heads-up games you played with them. So that's a huge asset because they are highly talked about, them three.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, have you got a favourite team, Ollie? I know that might change. That might change in a couple of days. But is there a team that you consider yourself a fan of?
Yes, Pommy. I've grown up being a Blues supporter. My great-grandfather played with the Blues. So I think he played 30-something games, 36 games with the Blues. So, yeah, that's carried on throughout the family. And yeah, so always been a Blues supporter.
Thank God for that, because every AFL draftee seems to support Collingwood. And it's hard to be nice to them in the interview after that.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially being a Carlton supporter. I can totally understand how you would.
Yeah, everyone needs to be honoured that we managed to get to the end of the interview with them. I nearly just closed the interview and was like, right, that's me done. That's me done. But is there a favourite player as well, Ollie? Who's your favourite for us?
Yeah, I think definitely Walshy. I think I try and watch him as close as I can. Like, I love the way he plays. I love his inside-outside game. I think he's a real high work rate player. And I think, yeah, watching him over the last few years, I've definitely tried to watch him as close as I can. So, yeah, definitely Walshy.
Mate, and tell you what, if you do come to us, you work a bit on your inside midfield. What's the prospect of, I mean, obviously think about that with big influences in your career. Must be exciting for a young player to think potentially you could be working with Vossi or you could be working with Beveridge. That must be a really exciting thing, these guys that you probably have looked up to as a kid, potentially going to be working with you in 5 days' time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the direction the club's heading is super exciting. And I think, yeah, they've got such a great team there in terms of their coaching staff. And yeah, I think it would be a bit of a dream, obviously, to get to the Blues and to be working alongside some of those guys. And yeah, I think the direction that Carlton Footy Club are heading in is super exciting. I think they've just re-signed a lot of their big players. So I think, yeah, there's going to be a lot of success in the near future for the club. So I think, yeah, for sure, it'd be super exciting to get there. But obviously, there's still a lot to go. There's still a lot of water left out on the bridge in terms of what actually happens on the draft night. So I guess, yeah, still got to be open to that as well.
Mate, now, when you retire, let's say we have a magic wand, 15 years' time, how would you like the fan base to remember you as a footballer?
I think as a footballer, I think someone who's really loyal. I know personally, I want to come into the AFL system. Yeah, being a loyal player, I'd love to sign a contract for quite a few years and try and be a one club player. I think that's always been me as a person and as a footballer as well. I've always been loyal, especially through the tough times of watching the Blues over the last 10 years. It's been challenging at times, but no, I think I'd love to be seen as a loyal player. A well-respected teammate within the club, and I think just a kind person. I think that'd be the best traits to have coming out of the system, and I think just being recognised as a good person would be the best thing to have.
Mate, I love that. It's a great answer. That is probably my favourite answer to that question in this series. I think it's always forgotten the off-field work people do as well, the footballers do, because you do become pillars of the community as well. So I think being a kind, good person is huge for the fan base. It's something that we need to see more of from the players.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, finally, if you were an AFL list manager, what number do you think you should go?
That's a good question. I think maybe between sort of that 5 to 10 range, I think. I think there's obviously I've still got a bit to work on, but yeah, as I mentioned before when I was talking about the big country game against Vic Metro, I feel like I've been able to show that I can really match it with some of those really highly touted players, and I think I could definitely. Well, I feel like I show a lot of similarity to some of those guys at the top end, and I don't think there's too big of a difference. I feel so. I think I could go personally. I think I could be between that 5 to 10 range, but of course that's not my job, and I'm happy to be honest. It doesn't faze me what pick I go, as long as I hopefully can get to a club and live out the dream.
Hey, you are right on the doorstep as well of living your dream. I mean, that must be super exciting. We did touch on your brother earlier, Elijah. Now, obviously, Elijah went 7 from memory to Gold Coast. Now, two-phase question. How does the prospect of having to do an Elijah and packing your bags and fly away grab you? And also, who has been the biggest influence on getting you to here? Is there a family member or Elijah himself who's really motivated you to get there?
Yeah, so I think the first phase to that question, I think it is exciting. Packing your bags and moving away. I've been away from home the last 3 years now, so it would be nice to be a little bit closer towards the family, but obviously I'm open to go anywhere and just be able to live the dream. So, it is exciting, and I think, I'm not too sure what it's going to actually look like after the draft. I think if I am in Melbourne, I think I'm going to try and pack a bag so I can crack straight into training and not have to. My dad lives up in Sydney, so not have to fly back up to Sydney and pack a bag and come back down. So I think that's kind of my approach, to sort of just, if I can get to a club, just crack into training as soon as possible and try and have an impact there. And I think the next part to the question, the biggest influence probably in my football journey would probably be between my great-grandfather and my dad. I feel like there's always been that sort of drive within those two of trying to them get the best out of me and really just want me to just enjoy my footy. Obviously, there's been a little bit of that extrinsic motivation from them and then want me to obviously pursue my dreams, but personally I think that's just come from my intrinsic motivation and just my love for footy, and they wouldn't have pushed me and given me the advice if I didn't enjoy playing footy, and I think they've just, particularly my grandfather, like the wisdom that he's shown and the conversations we've had about not only wanting to be a good footballer but just be a good person at the club, and obviously I've been given this ability and very fortunate to be in this position where I am, being in the draft picture and if I can sort of just get to a club and have a good impact there as a person, I think that's something that has been really good to hear from. And that wisdom that I've had from my great grandfather has been really massive for me. And then obviously with Dad, like the work that he's done for me in terms of have me or pay for me to be able to go to boarding school. I think that was absolutely massive in terms of what development as a footballer and as a person in general. I've learned so much independence with that opportunity to move away from home and being the APS system. It's a really good system in terms of sport, and I feel like very fortunate to be given that. And I think all the hard work Dad's had and the support he's shown towards me, I think it's been super influential.
Mate, I love that. And you've got good bloodlines there. Do you know what I mean? You've got your dad, like you say, Richmond, and it's Martin Cross, isn't it? Your grandfather as well, who played for Carlton. So, I mean, unfortunately, if you do come to Carlton, you won't be able to steal his number. I don't know if Wheaterin will give you it, but we'll have to work around.
Exactly. That's actually quite funny. My grandfather brought that up a little while ago. He said, if you get to the Blues, it'll be hard for you to get number 23. But I think Wheatering's for sure earned that number, and I think there won't be any chances of taking that off him.
I mean, you could always do what soccer players do, and they cheat and get 32.
Potentially.
And it's kind of the same.
Switch it around.
Do you know what I mean? Jack Noon has left. So, do you know what I mean? It is there available now to the club. But we end, Ollie, with some ridiculous questions. And we start off with posters on your wall. Who did you have as a kid?
I had a Chris Judd poster on my wall as a kid. I think, I've always loved Juddy growing up and being a Blues supporter. He was one I've always admired, and he was one. I think. Who else did I have on there? I think I had Sauce on there. I think Stephen Silvani. I think. Well, I remember I had this big Carlton poster, and it just had all the Carlton greats on there. So I think that was one poster I had. There was also a bit of cricket there, so Ricky Ponting was on there. I think that they were definitely most of the ones that I've had growing up.
Oh dear, as a Pom, Ricky Ponting. Still have nightmares about that guy.
What is that like in terms of the cricket and being in Australia as a Pom? How does that go?
Horrible. When England aren't going so well, I've got to admit. You Australians have a brilliant habit of finding the one Pom in any bar when you manage to kick us around the park in the Ashes. It's amazing how Aussies, even if I don't talk, just know I'm English. It's a phenomenal gift you guys have.
Do you wear the kit to the Boxing Day matches or any of the cricket that goes on in Australia? Do you have your English kit on?
When we do go to the cricket, I do. And unfortunately, my wife likes to wind me up by she wears her Australian shirt, being an Australian national, and the kids will be put in Aussie kits. So genuinely, I will be the only Pom in a group of 5, which is nice.
Couldn't get the kids over the line.
They switched. So because we won the T20, they were Pom at the end. Do you know what I mean? They were up till about the knockout stages. They were Aussie, and then they were like, "Oh, hang about. I better be English. I better be English for the rest." But, what's the most bizarre food you've ever tasted?
This is interesting. I think dragon fruit's weird. It's just a weird fruit, and it's got nothing special about it. There's no flavor to it. So probably dragon fruit.
I think that's a great answer. I mean, exciting name, rubbish fruit.
I agree.
I mean, it sounds amazing, doesn't it? Dragon fruit. And you're like, yeah, that sounds good. I'll go dragon fruit. And it is basically mushy water.
Yeah, it's got nothing in it.
Absolute bizarre food. Would you have a personal theme song? Personal theme song. What song really makes you get up and about?
This is a really good question. I've always been a big Drake fan. I love Drake, so probably his song "Take Care" with Rihanna. I think probably one of his big ones. Yep.
He's got the curse, though, remember, Drake. So if you do happen to get drafted by the Blues, please don't have a friendship with Drake. You lose if he's seen with you.
Yeah, right. I didn't know this.
Yeah, he's got a habit of taking pictures with NBA and soccer players, and they go on to lose. Like it happened to him.
Oh.
It happened to him yesterday with Alphonso Davies from Canada. He presented him a shirt, and Davies missed the penalty, and they lost.
Yeah, right.
It's the Drake curse.
Okay, I'll have to stay away from him then.
Only in the off season. You can go and see him in the off season. Just, if he ever comes over to Australia, just to hang up on him. Cursed. I'll send him to whoever we're playing that week. I mean, if we're playing Richmond, just tell Drake, Dustin Martin's your biggest fan. Go and spend the week with him.
Yeah.
Now, Christmas is just around the corner. Best Christmas present you've ever got, Ollie?
Oh, I got a Kaboom, a Gray Nichols Kaboom cricket bat as a kid, and it was probably one of the biggest things I've ever had in my life. I remember.
Mate, we all remember our favourite bat.
Yeah, that for sure was probably up there.
Mate, I remember getting a GM Purist. I was about 13. I remember my parents saved up for that, and that was I had that till I was about 18. Like it was in my kit bag. It was there. It was torn up by the end, but you always remember your favourite bat.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And we end with what fictional character do you resonate with the most? Who do you look at and you go, I wouldn't mind being that character?
In terms of sport or like movies or
movies, TV, just someone fictional, someone pretend.
Oh, probably Tom Cruise. I love watching Tom Cruise. Love all these movies. Yeah, probably Tom Cruise.
Hey, I like that. Do you know what I mean? Well, I mean, we wish you all the best, Ollie. We really are crossing everything we have. Hopefully, this time next year, we have you behind me, not Cripper. We'll make a promise. If you get drafted by Carlton, we'll have an Ollie Hollands behind Pom. But best of luck, mate. You seem a wonderful young human, and we're all rooting for you here to have a great career, wherever you go, whether it's Carlton or not.
Thanks, Pommy. It's going to be pretty hard to take down Cripper, though, after especially winning a Brownlow. So you got to make sure he stays up on the wall.
Yeah, we'll shift him to the next year. It'll be like a yearly thing.
No, but thanks, heaps, Pommy. Thanks for having me on it. It's been an exciting year, and it's been good catching up.
Cheers, mate. Well, go well, and good luck in, 3 days' time?
Yep. Thanks, Pommy.